Good evening, everybody. Getting the chat up here so I can see what I'm doing. Hope you guys are doing well. It's another week. Chiefs camp is raring and going. Looking forward to talking about that quite a bit tonight. And I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions. I will definitely get to them all. Give me a minute to get this kind of situated, and we will get rolling. Oh man, thank you all for when you watched the kind of ad lib video I did over the weekend. I appreciate that. I was at the lake. I haven't responded to everyone's comments because honestly, I'm way behind. So I hope you guys are okay with that. Sam, I'm gonna show your comment that looks like it was hidden. A lot of friendly faces in here. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing good. That video was kind of spur of the moment. It seems like you guys wanted it. If you enjoyed what I did, I can try to do that a little bit more often. It's a little outside of my normal content process, but let me know. The blue is from BKS Brewing in Kansas City on 38th, I think, and I don't even remember the cross street. I'll be there in August, so maybe we can all do a meetup or something like that. Yeah, that was just a local lake in Colorado. We're close to where we hang out, and we go for the weekend, so whatever happens. So anyway, we'll get started tonight. Lots and lots to talk about. I kind of led with the Mathieu Mahomes thing, just because I think that was interesting, because basically they are the two leaders of this team on the two sides. Yes, there's Frank Clark, there's Chris Jones, there's a couple other guys on the defense, but Tyrann Mathieu was brought in to be the leader on that side of the ball and to really give a counterpart to Pat Mahomes. That's really going to be important, and it's going to be kind of a duo kind of thing. So to see them almost come to blows, it was kind of entertaining. Tyrann Mathieu made a lot of jokes about it too, and what he should be joking about is just how good Patrick Mahomes has been. He's been very, very good to start this camp. If you go back and you look at the beginning of this channel, when the channel first started to take off, one of the big videos was that, everybody just relax. He's dropping bombs. Forget the interceptions thing. Well, that's a whole different story this year. Not going to be something that they have to worry about. So I think what you're going to find as the season goes on, especially camp, and I get this in the right place, what you're going to find is that it's all the better because of the year of experience. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about the trouble spots. I see some of you commenting about it already. So that said, I'm working on a new bucket hat because I know it's camp season. So I'll have some new gear, hopefully some better merchandise ready for you guys here in a little bit. If you want to support the channel, that's the easiest way. Well, that's one of them. The other one is the super chat that's at the bottom of this chat. You can always throw some in there. If you do, make sure that you throw a question on your donation so that I make sure to give you something in return. So that said, with tonight, and I know some of you care, some of you don't, tonight's beer is going to be from Fremont. It's a summer ale. In fact, it's going to be one of the beers that I review on the brand new craft beer podcast that's going on the other channel. So keep an eye out for that, all of you beer lovers, craft and otherwise. We'll be getting to that. So for all of you that are new, put some question marks at the beginning of your question. It helps me pick them out of the chat here. So we'll get cutting. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back to see if, in case I missed anyone. Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate that. At least one taker on the lake video. So, okay. First question, Terrence Mahoney. I appreciate it. Thanks for that. Love the channel. Oh, Daniel, is he going to make the team? Yes, he's definitely going to make the team. There are not three solid backup linebackers that don't include him. So Dorian Daniel's in no danger. I did notice the other day that he was running with the threes, it looked like. Maybe that's a nickel thing. Maybe it's not. But I can't say that that's super surprising at this point in camp. In camp, they're not getting into those big sub packages yet. They're not getting into some of the more intricate things. They will. And it's going to have an impact. But for right now, I think you're seeing them kind of stick to the base, the three linebacker sets, in which case Darren Lee's going to get some run ahead of him at will. If that changes, and I did notice that I saw Neiman not at Sam, but at middle linebacker. For those of you that have been out to camp, let me know if you can confirm that. That's what I noticed in some of the pictures and video, but that's all I had. So I think it's going to be a rotation. I am not concerned about Dorian O'Daniel. He might not be the fit that he was in the 3-4, but I think he's definitely going to make it, and they need to do something with him. So I'm looking forward to see what he pulls off. Great question there, Terrence, and I'm glad you asked it. Drew 29SK, I think you're new tonight. Oh, I already answered your question. Fremont. And that pod, I think, by the way, is going to start this week. It's going to be mixed video and audio, and it'll be on the podcast channel on the other one. Let's see. Next question. Gary Holland, how are you, pal? Do you think Hartman will be the number 3 receiver? I do. I'm not sure it's going to start that way. I think it might be Robinson to begin with here in the first, few weeks of the season. But I do expect, from what they've seen and the connections that Hartman is making already, because he can get loose with a speed that's kind of different from Tyreek's. I don't see his legs firing as piston-like, and that's what several people who've been to camp already have told me. And I'll know more once I see it with my own eyes. It's a little hard to judge off of videos and that kind of thing. So, but he's definitely going to be a tool in this offense that's going to stretch the field along with Tyreek Hill. And with he and Sammy out there together, which I think it will be eventually, Hill, Watkins, Hardman, I think that's going to be a position that Hardman's going to be in to really make up some of the production there as teams try to take away Kelsey and Hill and Watkins. He could be in the second part of the season somebody that really reaps the benefits of that particular lineup and makes a go of it. So I do think so, Gary. That was a great question, and I think it's going to work out that way. Who's next? Super Chief. Will Keith Reeser be cut because he got injured since he's on a 1-year deal? He'll be put on IR. He'll still get his salary. I think he'll still count. I don't think they're going to release him with an injury. They can release him. If they don't put him on IR, they could, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll just have to wait and see. That may be lost salary, but there's going to be a roster spot if it's true. I haven't seen confirmation. It's what is it? It's 7:00 Central. I haven't seen confirmation of that yet. So we're working up to it. Let me know if you guys did. Next question. Chief fan 58. Why? I assume that's 58 years. That's a good long time. Well done. Do we pursue Peters? And if we do, I assume you mean Peterson, who is suspended. I think it's 6 games. I think they could, but that 6 games really puts a bugger in the system because the value that you're trying to get for a guy that's not going to be available for, a third of the season is tough. So I think that could be something that kind of messes up that particular scenario. I like Patrick Peterson. I've liked him all offseason. If you've heard the podcast, we all really like him. But it's a lot of money for a guy who's not going to play a full slate. It's harder and harder to see that happening. But they do got to find something. If Reeser's gone, I don't think Breeland's going to be a long injury. But if Reeser's gone, it's really, really thin. Even getting Breeland back, and if the Chiefs are right and Charvarius Ward is a quality starter, you're one injury away from being in trouble. So yeah, I do expect them to be hunting right now. I expect them to be on the phone right now. I think I'm sure Brett Veach is out there doing his best to try to find something. Justin Trova, 3 players you would cut next year that don't put out to what they get paid. Hitchens, Watkins. I'm not sure. I think Okafor is going to put out, but if he didn't, I think he's the next biggest on the defense. So that's probably where I would go with that, Justin. Thanks. Alec Potty, I think you're new too. I haven't seen your name before, at least when I'm paying attention. So welcome. Do you think the Chiefs will get a CB since? Oh, yeah, I think they are. Same question. I think they are going to go after it. So, Gary again, Ryan, do we trade Jones next year? It's a possibility. I think his showing up to camp really sets the tone in a different way. I think the holdout says one thing, and you can take whatever you want from that. I'm sure the team did too. Showing up, despite all that, I think sets the tone in a different direction. I think it makes it more amenable, and I think it is a signal that maybe they can work out a number more easily. And if they can, then maybe it doesn't happen that way. it would definitely be a franchise tag if nothing comes here in the next, I don't know, 6 weeks. I think they have up to the trade deadline to actually sign something, but I could be wrong. Most players don't want to deal with it in this point in time. He did say in his press conference that he wants to rely on his representatives, and that's perfectly fine. Your job is to play, so I don't think you should be worried about that in the first place. So that's good. I think they could work something out, but if not, it's going to be a franchise tag. And then if the offer's good enough, that really is what leads to whether you get traded or not. So good question, Gary. Adam Daughtry, any closer to our tight ends 2 and 3? Well, they started repping John Lovett at fullback. In fact, that's going to be on the podcast for tomorrow, talking about that. And that does open up some things. I think Bell made a nice play. Was it yesterday? Something that stood out, at least to the folks that were there. There's always options, and there's always going to be cuts. I think Yelder's a guy they want to make the roster. I just don't know if he's going to. But if Lovett is more of an H, really, and they're going to practice him at fullback as well, I think that says something too. So tight end 3 might be 2 and 3 may be wide open at this point. Good question, Adam. Scott McClure, didn't we sign a corner from Arizona? Not that I recall. Demontre Wade was on the practice squad last year. Fenton and Fields are the young guys from this draft class. So yeah, I think you might be thinking Tyrann Mathieu, who played in Arizona for a long time. That could be it. Mark Charles, thank you. Appreciate the donation, but come back, man, and ask a question. You should get your money's worth. I appreciate the help, though. Thank you. Sam, no, that's not a question. Sorry, Mark. Okay, there you go. Do you believe Coach Bieniemy will be enticed to pursue a head coaching position elsewhere after the season? Or do you think he will stay and take over for Coach Reid when he calls it quits? Couple of things. I don't think Andy Reid's going anywhere, even if they did win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think he's done. He's early 60s. I think it was 61. If I'm right, I'd have to check that. And yeah, he did have was it knee replacements? A couple of things health-wise that maybe makes the grueling grind of the NFL tougher to deal with. But I don't think Andy Reid be done with one, especially with this quarterback. If they do get to the championship game, win or lose, I think Andy will be back. But that said, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to have a lot of suitors. For me, I think it's going to come down to how much of the play call does he get, or is it perceived that he gets? Just like Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy, they started out as the coordinator, and then later they got to actually play calls or call plays. Sorry. I think that's what the key is going to be. If we start hearing rumblings that he's calling plays late in the season, and that's validated with the search committees for the different teams, you could see that happen. But I think it might be, you might have Eric Bieniemy this year and 2020 is the way I'm leaning right now. Good question. Dylan Kruckman, thank you for the donation. If the defense is in the top 20, who gets credit, Veach or Spags? Yes, they will both share the spotlight for that, as they should, because it takes not only – think about the way this happened. Andy comes – you're Brett Veach. Andy comes to you and says, I want Spags. I know Spags. I think he'll do a good job. He's rested. He's come up with new wrinkles. He's an aggressive guy that I can give the defense to and let him do it. But you got to get him the players he needs. That's a big step. And so if you're Brett Veach, you get to know Steve Spagnuolo. You do some meetings with him. You find out what he's looking for specifically in terms of the athletes as well as the skill sets. And then you go about trying to find them. And I think Brett Veach did a very good job with that. And so if they do end up that high, I do think they both get credit. At least they definitely will from me. Casey K69. Oh, and Dylan, thanks for the donation if I didn't say that before. Who will get more receptions, Hartman or Robinson? I think in the end it's going to be Hartman. I could be wrong. Wide receiver is a tough position for a rookie. So that said, I don't think it's going to be drastic right now, but I'm leaning Hartman. Let's see. Metal Rocker X. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Do you think Chris Jones will get the same type of deal that Frank Clark did? I don't. I don't think the team wants to pay that, especially right now off of one season. Yes, he's been progressing, but really elite. He's only been one season. Frank had several, and was consistent about. And I think that's the big thing. He might get similar guaranteed money, but I think it's going to be a lot less in terms of overall, in terms of average, but it might approach it in guarantees. Who was it? It was Joel Corey from CBS Sports, former agent, that kind of put out a couple of thoughts about him, looking for money in the, 44 guaranteed range, whereas Frank was 63. Somewhere in the middle makes sense to me. And as long as Chris and his representatives are willing to negotiate a little bit, not really stick to that, Frank or, Aaron Donald money, I think they can get something done. So I'm still optimistic that it can happen. Let's see. Jay Kane, any rumors about trading for a Giants corner? I think it would be Janoris Jenkins because they invested a lot in their young corners, but I haven't heard anything about it new. It's just a possibility. We've gone over it on the podcast, but I don't know anyone who's got inside information that's saying, hey, this is happening. So if it does, I'll let you guys know as soon as. Good question. Scott McClure again, worried about corners. Didn't we sign one in the offseason? Yeah, that was Breland. Who was in Washington with Fuller back in the day, and then last season was hurt. He's the guy who came into camp, got the tour, got the red carpet rolled out for him, and didn't sign because he wanted a multi-year deal, and Chiefs weren't interested in that because of the injury that he had. He ended up sitting out half the season, ended up in Green Bay, and played by every measure that I have pretty well. Not perfect, but pretty well. And he sliced his thumb, I guess, the first day of practice, so he's been out. I don't think it's going to be a long injury. I don't think it's going to be a severe injury. I think he'll be fine. A couple of stitches, a few days to heal, tape that sucker up, and I think he'll be ready to go. So, yeah, not a problem. Jerry, how about Alex Okafor? How's he looking? I haven't been to camp myself yet, but from what I've heard, he is definitely the guy that is producing the most pressure opposite Frank Clark. So I expect that he's going to be the starter there. Kind of have since they signed him. I think Agba's going to get more run kind of in the inside in the three techniques, move those kind of things around. I'll know more for you after the first preseason game. I'm going to be in camp the next few days. I'll definitely be able to tell you what I think at that point once I see it with my own eyes. Who's next? Cole Keeler saw an article on Chiefs Wire that predicted Kyle Shurmur will beat out Chad Henne for the backup. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. Nothing against Chiefs Wire. They've got some good guys over there, and they have over the years. And he keeps guys like Chase Daniel and Chad Henne because of their experience. I don't care how good a rookie is. Andy's not going to hand the backup reins over to a rookie. I am 99% certain of that. The question is going to be, does Shurmur beat out Litton? Litton's got a better arm, more similar to Mahomes' arm. Not that good, but a lot better relatively. But Shurmur's got the mental ability. His dad's a coach. You guys all know his name. He's a kid that can make a lot of hay off of that knowledge part. And in Andy's recent offense, that's super, super important. So I could see him winning against Litton, but I think that still ends up with him on the practice squad. Which I think is perfectly fine. They can call him up should anything happen to anyone, and then go from there. So, yeah, I don't see how that's – I don't know why you would think that. So, excuse me. Keith or Kenneth, the Highness, I answered that one a little bit ago about Reeser. CJ Dial, how do you feel about the CB injuries? Do you think – they'll make a move? Same question. Sorry. Yeah, I think they definitely will. I just don't know when. Let's see. And yeah, and I've seen the thought about trading to the Giants because they need receivers. That is true, but I don't know. I don't even know if the Giants are interested in moving anybody. So right now it's all guessing games. I do think that Veach is calling around at this point. So let's see here. Who's next? Okay, I'm glad you guys are as worried about the corners as I am. I've seen a lot of questions about that. Your opinion, who could be the biggest surprise cut prior to the season? Well, I would have said Sorensen, but man, they are repping him a lot. Thornhill is not running with the ones as of yet. So take that off the table. I think Reggie's in perfect shape. I don't see any reason that that's going to happen. Could it be Neiman? Maybe. Could it be Lee? Could it be O'Daniel? They're all fighting for 2 spots, those 3. So I don't think the Chiefs will keep 7 linebackers. They could, but I kind of doubt it. So for me, probably the biggest cut that could be coming is likely on the other side. Does Khalil McKenzie actually make it onto the roster? They're trying to get him center reps, specifically at center rather than guard like he was last year, but he's running with the 3s at this point. Yes, he has plenty of time. Camp just started, but at the same time, you got to get going. So we'll see what happens with that. And that could be a maybe. I won't be surprised by any of the wide receiver cuts because there's so many. Same thing with the tight ends. And at this point with Damian Williams and his hamstring, I don't see them carrying less than 4 tailbacks. So I think that's going to happen too. Good questions. Let's see here. Oh, that was David Haddock. If I didn't say your name, David, sorry. Drew 29 SK. What's the biggest expectation for Mahomes in second year starting? I want to see him be able to deliver the ball without having to rely on his athleticism. Better pre-snap reads. Being able to take the ball, give it to the slant. You don't have to hold it and go downtown as often as it seems like he wants to. That's a sign of maturity, and I feel like he's going down that path. It's just, is he going to get there this season? I don't know. But good things do happen when he breaks the pocket. So, Aaron Geckley, I'll get to yours in a minute here. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, backup corners. Olivier Karen, thanks for your question. Which players are you looking forward to seeing the most in the preseason? I can't wait to see the wide receiver battle. Yeah, the wide receivers, the safeties, the corners. I really want to see what the rotation comes down to for the D linemen. I haven't heard much about Noddy at this point. I know Xavier Williams started with the 1s. I think Noddy is rotating in with the 1s. Saunders is running with the 2s, and I think that's perfectly good. So I want to see what that kind of boils down to with the 3 techniques to go with Jones. You want to get Agba in there, and we're hearing some good things about Tano Passanio. And from what I've heard, he's been both end and tackle. So I think that's intriguing. I want to see what that kind of boils down to, what the rotation is going to be. Let's see here next. Okay, great. Adam Daughtry, thoughts on K-Pass? Does he make the roster? I think he's making a push for it. I think it comes down to who's getting into the backfield. Pressure, penetration. Those are the 2 things that Spagnuolo wants. It's not necessarily, recording sacks in preseason games. That's always kind of an iffy proposition to really base a decision on. But who's consistently beating their man, given that this defense is designed to be more one gap. Beat your guy, penetrate your gap, and win. So I think it's about win percentage more than sack percentage. Good question. Who's next? David Wilkerson. I want to watch training camp. What are the details like Park? You'll have to check with the Chiefs for that. I don't keep up to date on all that. It's at Western Missouri in St. Joe. It's pretty easy to get to off I-29. Just head up there, and there's signs everywhere. So, but check Chiefs.com and they'll have all the information for you. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, Jerry, how did Kelsey look at the 10 and outs? The couple that I've seen, it looks like he's moving just fine. He's planning on that foot. I don't see any issue with it. It's going to be about the marathon rather than the sprint. So let's check in a couple weeks and see how he feels, and then we'll have a better idea if he's 100% healed or if there's still a little care that you have to take with him. Let's see, J-Dub, what's going on with Damian Williams? Is it just a hamstring? That's what I've heard from both the official releases and the guys that are at camp that I know. It's just a hamstring. It's a little bit troublesome that you start out camp that way, but some guys are just, touchier that way. It could be a hydration issue. It could be a number of things. Like Reggie hurt himself the week before training camp last year because he was working out and just went too far. It could be something like that too. So I don't think it's anything to be concerned about long-term, but for now it's going to hide some run, and we'll see what he does with it. I'm waiting to hear about Darryl. I'm a little frustrated. I thought Darryl Williams would get the first crack at being the backup, but we'll see what it comes down to. Let's see. Super Chief, what's a realistic corner we could trade for? Jenkins is probably the one. The Vikings aren't giving up anybody. Xavier Rhodes is off the table. I don't think it's worth the investment probably at this point to trade for Patrick Peterson unless it's just cheap. And I don't think that's going to be true. So then you have to start to get creative, maybe looking at a younger guy, maybe somebody that has been good but hasn't been that good. One guy that I really like is Kevin King with the Packers. He played at UW right after Marcus Peters. Guy to look at. If you're just going to inquire about guys you want, I think he's a guy that fits the scheme, can play off ball really well, very instinctual, can play press as well. So I'd like to see them at least make a call for that. Coach Kyle, heard K-Pass got reps with the ones. Any info on how he's looking? I haven't seen it personally, but I have heard the same thing, and that he's explosive. He's relying on his athleticism, and unlike seasons past, in Sutton's system where he was an outside linebacker and he had to analyze what he sees in front of him before he can do something. Now he has a much more simplified task where he can be a pass rusher, and that's what he's doing. Even Andy Reid said that he looks like he's firing off the ball well. So I think that's a positive. It's allowing K-Pass to play to his strengths, and we've talked about that this offseason too. Let the players do what they're good at and then build from there. Nadeem, why didn't we sign Maurice Claiborne? Because he's been playing pretty rough in years past. I don't think he has the foot speed they're looking for, and I'm just not sure they're sold. But then I didn't think that they'd go for Orlando Scandrick either. If Reeser is gone for the season and there's any other injuries that pop up here, if Breeland is going to be out for any reason, you'll see them sign somebody pretty quickly, and obviously Claiborne's out there. So he is the veteran go-to at this point in terms of free agency across the league. Let's see. Hog Farmer, do we continue to put up 24 points a game per game streak since 1940? Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I don't see any reason to think that this offense isn't going to score 24 weekly. Yeah, I think it could definitely do that. So, yeah, I think that streak continues. Probably until they play the Chargers. The Chargers are the defense that I think is going to slow them some, or at least has the ability to. But then again, they got to score to keep up too. So, and we'll see what happens. Colby Chastain, what do you think of DeMarcus Robinson trade rumor with the Giants? I think it's just a fan rumor. I haven't heard anything from anyone connected to the Giants or to the Chiefs that actually say that this is something that's going on. So it's a good idea. I've mentioned it myself, but I don't think it's actually got any legs yet. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Tim Countryman, do you think Fields will see corner time this season? Yes, I do. I had him making the roster a month ago after OTAs. And the injury to Reeser just makes that more likely, in my opinion. So, yeah, I do think both. If Reeser's out, I do think both Fenton and Fields make the 53-man roster. Let's see. Who's next? Got Tim's. Evgeny. What are your thoughts on Wade and Fields' chances to make the roster? Like I said, I think Fields make it. Wade repping with the ones took me a little bit by surprise. I didn't think that he was quite that ready. But it seems that the team does, and they feel as strongly about that as they do about Ward. Now, running both those guys is a little bit scary for me, given their age and their experience level. But they both have the physical tools. And if they're starting to put it together, there's that old saying that it doesn't matter how you get to the league. It matters what happens once you get to the league. And he may be a very good example of that. So let's see how the reps go out. Let's see what happens with Breeland, and we'll see where it lands. But, Chris has been big on him for months, and it looks like he's going to be right. It looks like he is a guy that is definitely in the mix to be that fourth corner. Good question, Evgeny. Let's see here. Aaron Geckley, regarding the craft brewing, you said other channel. Can you post a link? I can't really post while we're in the chat. Just search RGR podcasts. It's where the Locked On Chiefs podcast videos go up, as well as my NFL videos, podcasts, and my radio appearances go up there too. So it's going to be a brand new playlist podcast on the podcast channel where everything else is too. If I get a chance before the chat's over, I'll try to grab it. I think I have a link. Actually, I do have a link right here. Hold on a second. I'll put that in the chat right now. And that's where you can find it. It'll be out later this week. Let's see. Is Armani Watts still out with a hamstring? It wasn't a hamstring, Jay. It was a rib contusion that he got during the conditioning test of all things, which tells me maybe he tripped up, fell on it or something, or something like that. But yeah, he was back out there today. He's been cleared. He's off the NFI list, so he's basically ready to roll again. Okay. Next question. Remember, guys, put like 3 or 4 question marks before your question so I can pick them out. Should we have? Okay, this is from Jerry Cole. Do you think we should have kept the kid we took out of Albuquerque, New Mexico for CB depth? Or do you think they will give him another call? I'm not sure who you mean. If you're talking Devontae Busby, I can't remember where he played. He's a Bronco now. So, and it looks like he's going to make their roster too. So keep that in mind. I'll go back and look at that, Jerry, and try to get back to you. Danny Atkins, when are you going to camp? I'm going to be there the 12th and 13th, possibly the 14th. I'm not sure. That's going to be the couple of practices Monday and Tuesday after the first preseason game. So I'm usually there up by the beat reporter tent, the media tent, kind of looking down the fields rather than in the stands. So that's where you can find me. Let's see. David Perez. I've heard Hyde is running with the ones while Damien is out. That's true. Does that mean he has surpassed Darrell as the number 2? It certainly feels like it. I'm not sure if that is trying to explore how Hyde is, where he is physically. Can he take all those reps and hold up? Or if it's just seniority thing. He is a vested veteran. You know, sometimes that carries weight. I don't think anything is set in stone yet at corner, at tailback, even at the wide receivers. I don't think anything's set. Cody Thompson's coming on, folks. So keep his name in the forefront of your mind. But yeah, I think we'll find out more. Preseason game number 2 is going to tell the tale. So I'm still heavy on the Darrell Williams train. So we'll see what happens. Good question, David. The Jarbanks. Yeah. Do you see the Chiefs going after Claiborne, Trey Boston, or Crabtree? I don't think they need Crabtree or want him. They've had their chance to sign Boston for months and haven't. If anything, it'll be Claiborne, but I don't think that's going to happen either. I think they're going to try to find somebody else. Good question, Binks. Trenton Prettyman. What's your opinion on Wade? Okay, talked about him, or do you think they could pick up some other corner? Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've covered that topic. Thanks, Trenton. But yeah, I think both those could happen. Let's see who's next. Big Test. Who's the most important player performance-wise on the defense besides the obvious big names? The guy that's really got to hold it down is a position that in this defense is kind of taking over for what we've seen the safeties do in years past. And that's Damian Wilson. Yes, Wilson. Playing that Sam linebacker is not only setting the edge on the tight end side, but it's also having to take the tight end down the field in coverage. A thing that I think he's kind of a power player, but they think he can do that very well. I don't think he's going to be in there in the nickel, but I could be wrong. But I think he's going to be the guy that's really got to perform well for this defense to come together and not have the same susceptibilities that it's had in the past. If they get better zone coverage out of the safeties and corners, which I think zone is going to be a much bigger percentage this year. If they get that, then the next logical thing for an offense to do is to try to attack with the tight ends, especially when you have tight ends in like Hunter Henry in LA that they're going to see a couple times this season. So I think that's definitely something coming down the road. Good question. Fireman Juice, what's up, buddy? Is K-Pass making a difference? He's making some plays, and he's standing out to the coaches who are making comments about him, and that's a huge deal. So he is making a difference. I don't know that he's making, sacks, impact plays. Agba got a turnover of all things. He's not doing those kind of things, but he is standing out. He's helping his case quite a bit. Next, Stephen Kramer. What's your early touchdown prediction for Mahomes? I'm going around 44. I think the defense is going to be better, and I don't think they're going to have to score as many points to win. And knowing Andy, I think that'll slow things down a bit. Now, knowing Mahomes, I think he's going to push it a little bit. So I don't know where it comes out. But I'm thinking like a little bit of fall off is probably likely just based on having a better defense and not having to score as much. Let's see. Adam Daughtry, with the D-line fairly beefed up, will Dirty Dan be blitzed more or ride the pine? I think the only thing that Dan can really bring that is outstanding is his blitz. And Spags likes to blitz. Right now, they have him running with Mathieu, and Mathieu playing up closer to the line of scrimmage. I think eventually that's going to be Thornhill in the back at free, and Dan's going to be the third. I don't think he'll be, if you call that right in the pine, that's fine. But when he does come in, I think he will be utilized in blitz. I think he will be taking tight ends. He will be up closer to the line of scrimmage and still allow Mathieu to play the kind of robber role. So I do expect him to get time. I'm just not sure where and when at this point. Good question, though. Let's see. Who's next? Combat Arsenal. How big of a priority do you think committing less penalties is this season? I think it's always something that they harp on, but that's execution. At this point, I think they're doing install and they're trying to emphasize things. It's going to come down to the players policing themselves and realizing that they were this close last year. They have to limit the penalties to get all the way up on top of the mountain, play in that Super Bowl. Young Adam. Can defense still be better this year if they take a step back with the CBs? I don't think it's possible to take much of a step back. Just not good play last season. If there's still the same weakness, it is still possible to be better from an overall standpoint. And I think Spags is more likely to address that with changing the scheme, playing more zones that can help, playing more help in general. And I think that will pay off overall. Let's see. Terrence Mahoney, you're back. Oh, wait, sorry. Austin Haw first. Do you think Chris Jones placed in the top 100 bodes poorly for the Chiefs' leverage and contract talks? I don't think the Chiefs care about that at all. That's player voted. It's going to be what it is. The NFLPA cares more than the NFL does. Terrence Mahoney, I feel like we are deep at DL, definitely. How many do we keep and who do we let walk? That is a tough one. I think Xavier Williams and Justin Hamilton are fighting for a spot. Right now it's Williams, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't know how many edges you can catch. Tano Passanio, Breland Speaks. I think they're out there on the question mark range as well, just because of how much talent they brought in. I think Agwa's probably more straightforward. I know Okafor is going to start next to or opposite Frank, so I feel like that's pretty consistent. So it's going to come down to who makes plays. I don't think they can keep more than 9 in those 4 positions. Maybe 10th. I don't know. That seems like it's pushing it to me, but we'll have to see what the numbers look like at corner and wide receiver. The guy that I really question is playing linebacker, and that's Ada Ocho. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where his spot is if he's going to pull it off. I probably should have said him earlier. There's a veteran that might not make the roster. Let's see. Adam Daughtry, what do you think about the extended season? I'm going to do an extra pod for this on the other channel. I just don't see it happening. I don't think the NFLPA is ever going to agree to more full games. If they do, I could see them agreeing to a 17-game season or an 18-game season, as long as you definitely get an extra bye week. That might do it. I don't buy the rotation of play 18 games and only suit up for 16. I think that it waters down your product, and I don't think that the NFL is really serious about that. I think they're saying that as a proposal so they can then pull it back off the table. I don't think that happens in the end. Let's see. Oh, Kenneth, thanks. The wife just wants to say hello and asks, will PM15 be the MVP for second year? Man, he's got a shot. There are seasons where 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns is an MVP runaway. So I don't see how he's not in it. The question is going to be, what does Drew Brees do? What does Philip Rivers do? Guys that are approaching the end of their career that really have some weapons that really have to push, they could make a charge, definitely. And then you always have the Brady factor. So, it's going to be what it is, but he's definitely in the mix. And say hi to the missus for me. My missus is not watching tonight, so she's busy. Okay, next up, J-Dub, who do you think we targeted at tight end and CB after cut downs? Man, it's a good question, and I think they will definitely be pickups post cuts. but I can't tell you until those cuts happen. There's always somebody that catches me off guard around the league at both those positions. So we'll see. Who's next? Chariot HD. Don't know if this has been answered already. Just got here. Okay, welcome. Glad you made it. But Mecole's role now is there no suspension for Tyreek. He's going to be the 3. He should run out of the slot predominantly. That's what he did in college. I think it's a perfect fit. It's about when he takes over for Demarcus Robinson. Is it going to be this season, next season, week 4, week 15? Who knows? But I think this offense wants to take it to the next level in terms of just threatening deep, and that is Mecole Hartman over Robinson. So we'll see how that comes down. KBKC 79. Yes, they have way too many wide receivers. There might be trade bait there. Don't know. There's some young guys that are really, really interesting. So yeah, they're really deep at that position. Maui, bro. Mahalo. Hope you're doing good. Appreciate you joining in, especially 3 hours before me. Chiefs cards 29. Do you think the Chiefs will use Hardman as they did with a young Tyreek and DeAnthony Thomas? I don't think he's going to do as much gadget work. No. What he was really good at in college was tracking overhead, running deep routes, stretching the defense vertically. I think that's going to be a heavy dose. But we already saw it. If you missed some of the clips on social media, I think BJ put it up there. He's already running jet sweeps, doing some of the things that DeAnthony and Tyreek did. I just don't think it's going to be as gadgety. I think what I really want to see, if you remember those little shovel passes Mahomes did with Tyreek crossing, you get him and Mecole Hardman crossing in different directions. What's a defense going to do? Who do you track? I think that's such a mismatch. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I want to see that wrinkle back in this offense. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about that one. Let's see. Kyle Schulte. How do you rank the following players in terms of how important it is to their contracts in place? Jones, Hill, Mahomes, Kelsey. Importance. Kelsey's on for another 2 years. So I'm going to leave him last. So it's going to be Hill, Jones, Mahomes, because Mahomes is going to be here long term no matter what. He knows that. He knows he's still on a rookie deal. He knows he still has a 5th year option that the team can pick up. I don't think he's going to press that. The CBA looming just kind of leaves. If I'm Pat Mahomes, I'm not worried about it because I want to see what life is like after the CBA, which I think is going to afford teams a bigger salary cap and players a bigger chunk of the revenue. So if I'm Pat Mahomes, I'm just taking it easy. So I'd put him 3rd. Hill 1st, Jones 2nd. I think that's the way it's going to go. Let's see. Chris Greer, aside from House, who's your favorite position coach and who will have the biggest impact? The biggest impact is going to be Brendan Daly. I don't know him. I haven't heard him. I haven't spoken to him. But I think he's a guy that's elite. Dave Merritt's been in the league a long time. Sam Madison's really new. So I think it's about House and Daly. That's the 2 guys that Spags is going to lean on the most. Travis Collar, who do you see the Chiefs have any interest in Theo Riddick? They could, especially if Carlos Hyde proves not to be, durable, as has gone on most of his career. They could take some interest in him. We'll have to see. Drummer Dude, thank you for your donation again. Do you think that our O-line will benefit from practicing against a more elaborate pass rush this year? I think they will. They're going to be stressed. Spags likes to stunt, and that's the thing that has been a problem for the Chiefs O-line in years past. It took LDT a couple of years to get used to it. Wiley got caught a bunch last year on stunts and twists. Spags is going to do that constantly. So, yeah, that's going to be a good thing. And now that I think it's very clear that Andrew Wiley is the starting left guard with Cam practicing at tackle, I think that is something that they need to get those reps. They need to get those looks. Great question. J-Deb, what's the best position battle on our defense you're most excited to watch in training camp? It's going to be the corners and safeties. I feel like I know most of what's going to go on with the linebackers, but there's always a surprise there, and that's a position that's dear to my heart. So I always watch them. Andrew McCown, do you think we'll see more plays with Tyreek in the backfield if we see Mecole playing on offense and not on special teams? I think Mecole is going to play on special teams, but I do think you're going to see not necessarily lining up in the backfield, maybe a few times, but I think you're going to see a lot of jet motion from both of them. Rich BB, lots of people talking about Mahomes' regression this season. I think he is an improviser, and that's how he is built. Do you think he will see any notable regression? It depends on what you see as notable. I think he might fall off 10%. So 45. I think 44 is the number I put out a couple weeks ago. That's kind of how I feel about it. So we'll see. I don't call that regression when you're still, falling back to an MVP level performance. So Kelly Blevins, how many quarterbacks will they keep? I think it's going to be 2. Chris Greer, what percentage do you get from Super Chat? Would it be most beneficial to support you? Honestly, I appreciate that. That's a great question. YouTube takes their chunk of the Super Chat. I get about half of it. So supporting me through RGR gear, the t-shirts and all that stuff that's at Teespring RGR, and it's in the show notes and all that. That's the best way. I get a bigger chunk of that, and that helps. And they are about to reduce some of their prices. So I'm going to have some falling prices for you guys. So I appreciate that. There's a little bit of trickle, but it's training camp now. And I'm going to find a new vendor for like hats and things, because I still don't even have a hat for myself. So I'm working on that before I come out to camp. So I'll let you guys know. But thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Mecole, do you expect the defenses will do what the Patriots did against Mahomes in the championship game, which is play cover 0, a lot of tight man, and try to really disguise what they're doing? Let's see. Oh, I lost it. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Or do you think they'll adjust? I think Mahomes can adjust. I think he did in the second half. I think teams are going to try to do that, though, and they're going to mix it up. I think they're going to try to play more cover 2 and have split safeties. They're going to have to disguise it a lot. But underneath that, I think they're going to play a lot more press and try to really confuse him. It's about alignment as much as it is execution after the snap. If you can get him to adjust pre-snap, that's what teams are going to try to do, in my opinion. Let's see. S. Burke, will you cry if they keep Lovett over Sherman? I probably will. Maybe not real tears, but I'll be upset. I am a big Sherman fan, and I think everybody knows that. I really don't see that happening, though, because I think Lovett practicing there is more about being an H than being, a lead blocker, which really Anthony's the only one who can do that. Good, funny question, though. Mecole, do you expect the defense? Oh, I answered that one. Metal Rocker. How well would the Chiefs be if they had the defense of the early 2000s? They'd be unbeatable. They'd be a dynasty. Look for that to happen. Let's see. Kevin Blevins, is there a wide receiver that will make the roster? Cody Thompson's pushing for it. He's catching everything just like he did in OTAs. It's going to be about, can he make plays when the pressure's on in the preseason games? He would be basically, I don't think they can part with Pringle. They're obviously not going to part with Hartman. So that's 4 right there with Watkins and Hill. Dieter, Kemp, special teams there. Mahomes' best friend. I hate to say that, but I think it's probably a factor, that chemistry thing. So, yeah, I think Thompson's kind of fighting with Demarcus Robinson. If it comes down to Pringle and or Hardman bouncing up over Robinson, it's going to come down to somebody like that fighting with Robinson. Could be interesting. Let's see. Jay, we appreciate. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thanks, Jay. Very much appreciated. Ryan, do you know how Nick Allegretti's doing? He's running with the 2s at left guard, Jerry. And that's a really good sign, I think. They got him some center snaps. They're doing the same thing with Khalil McKenzie, but it looks like they're pushing McKenzie more to that. Allegretti's really tall. I think he's 6'6". Difficult to play low at center like that. So I think guard's a more natural spot for him. And I think it's something that he'll probably rep there and be, those 2 guys may be the interior swing guys, linemen 7 and 8. So that could be the way that it works out. Let's see. Scott McClure, is Hartman and Watkins replacement next year? He could be. I just don't know. Sammy could blow up too. You just never know. This is probably the best shape he's ever been in. Danny Romero, can Mahomes repeat his MVP? He can. I don't know if he will. The league and the voters don't tend to do that, so I think it's kind of a tall order. But, man, he could knock it out of the park even more. He could throw 55 for all I know. So I think that's what it'll come down to. Let's see. Matt P. If a non-QB throws a couple touchdowns this season, who do you think it will be? I think it'll be Kelsey. Don't let Tyreek throw any more passes, in my opinion. But here's the sneak one. If it's multiple, it could be John Lovett. He was a quarterback in college. I'd love to see them do. Who was that? Who's the guy that Doug Peterson used on the goal line for the Philly play? Always escapes my mind. Anyway, he could play that role really easily. So yeah, I say Lovett as a 2. Lucas Clemens, will Dieter make this roster? Right now, I'm leaning towards yes. Anthony Jacks, has Tyreek shown up yet? Oh yeah, he was there day one. He even spoke to the media. He's in full effect, running deep routes, hurting the defense. Yeah, Tyreek Hill is everything you saw in his workout videos on social media. It looks like it carried right over. So doesn't look like he's lost a step. Michael Apuma, do you think the reason why Chris Jones hasn't gotten an extension yet is that it has to do with the change of coaching staff and scheme? It's part of it. You want to see the guy rep out in your new defense. But it's also that, he hasn't been consistently elite. He was last season. Before that, he had not been, whereas Frank had like 3 or 4 seasons where he was borderline elite, if not elite himself. So that's the difference between Frank Clark and Chris Jones right now. Another elite season this year, and he'll get his money. Lucas Kinsey, what's your opinion on Breland Speaks? Haven't heard much out of him. He's big. He's playing predominantly in at tackle, from what I understand, from folks who have done the snap counts. I haven't seen it yet either. But I think they want rotational guys in there that can pass rush, and he can certainly pass rush. And I thought coming out of college, 3 tech was probably his best role. So give it a couple weeks. Let's see what he comes in at. Zach Jackson, thanks for your donation. Very much appreciated. I've heard Pat and the offense has been lights out in camp so far. Is this a sign that the defense is struggling or the offense is dominant? The deep patterns definitely have been, but they've already gone through. The defense has collected, I think, 6 turnovers already. So in 3 days, that's actually pretty good. I would say that for offense that's a top 5, this defense is keeping up so far. They're giving up the big plays, definitely, because of the speed of Hill and Hartman. And Sammy's looking good too. But I don't think it's as rough as it sounds. I think they are making plays in spurts. And I think it feels like they're coming together. So I'm going to say that it's the scheme and they're going to get even better. But thanks, Zach. Appreciate the donation. Jared Panzer, if the defense is better, doesn't that mean that they'll get it into Mahomes' hands more often, meaning more series and or touchdowns? Possibly. But here's the thing. When Andy's up 2 scores or more, he slows down. He takes his foot off the pedal. We've seen it his entire career. I don't think it's going to change. So that's going to be the big question mark. So that's why I said earlier, I think that might play into it. So, all right, folks, we're approaching an hour. I'm going to wrap up and try to speed through the rest of these and get to your questions. What's up with EB? Wouldn't mind him bringing him back. I think he's done. Nobody signed him. I haven't even heard of him working out for anyone. I think Eric Berry his health is just not there. So sorry. What do you think of the integration rule that allows pass interference to be challenged or reviewed? I think it's about time. I think it'll probably lead to some better calls. We'll see if it actually works out that way. It's still human error, so who knows? JW, is Chris gonna get a contract before the season starts? Possibly. It looks like kind of a long run. I think he may play out this year and it happens afterwards. Let's see. Talked about that. Not an internet killer. Well, that's good to know. The backup's going to be Henny. It's not really a question. Anywhere on the Honey Badger or Thornhill's impact so far? Badger's been all over the place. Had a nice scoop on a fumble today. Thornhill's running with the 2s and has had his hand on a couple balls, but he hasn't come up with a pick yet that I know of. So making progress. What team in the NFL outside of the Chiefs have made the most progress on a Super Bowl run? From Noah Siebert. Good question. I think that the Falcons have bounced back quite a bit. I won't say they're ready for a Super Bowl run yet, though. The Rams have helped a little bit. I think the Seahawks kind of improved their chances. They got a decent lineman. They got DK Metcalf. He might be a good possession receiver for a guy that's super fast but can't cut. But I don't know. I got to see some preseason games before I'll give you a hard answer, though. Crappy Master 10K. How many games do you think we lose? In our rundown a couple weeks ago, I said 2. Could be as many as 4, but I think it's in that range. I think it's a 12 to 14 win team. What's up from Overland Park? How are you? Rudy Rollo, is the defense is top 15. You think the chances for a perfect season? I don't think a perfect season is attainable in the NFL in the modern age. So I would say probably 5%. I could always be wrong, but I don't think it'll happen. Rock 3036. What the moves of the Chiefs to make it CB now? I talked about that earlier. I think they're going to look around. They have Fenton and Fields, who I said were going to make the roster for a long time. That's going to be the question. Those are the guys that I think that will be there. It's going to be a question if they have to fill in beyond that. I think they like Wade and Breeland's going to be back. That's 6 right there. So I think they're pretty good. I do expect 6 to make the roster. J-Dub Sherman for president. I'm down. Get me a shirt. Keith Welch. I don't really see the greatest show on turf kind of thing. I think it's kind of its own deal. I actually kind of cringe when people compare it to that. So let's give them credit for who they are. Yeah, just my thoughts. If we make it to the Super Bowl, what NFC would you like to see them play? I want to see them beat the Rams again, or play the Rams again and get a chance to beat them is my point. Drew Brees scares me more than Jared Goff does. I'll put it that way. Charlie Rogers, how are you? I've heard Robinson is pretty consistently getting third reps. Yep, that's what I've heard too. I'd be incredibly surprised if they cut him. I would too. I think a trade is more likely scenario. Charlie Rogers, I'm with you on all 3 parts. So, and by the way, I'll be in town in a few weeks. We need to have a beer. Let's see. Ribs, who would you take the over under if J-Dub asked 20 more questions? Yeah, he's going to ask a lot more. I'm taking the over. Let's see. Kelly Blevins, what type of offense do you think Tennessee will play? A lot of no huddle. I think that's going to be an interesting aspect. They always have tried to practice fast, but I've heard Bieniemy 3 different times be emphasizing, let's play fast, let's play fast. I would like to see that. It limits substitutions on the defensive side. It limits what they can do. And if they want to play cover 0 and get in guys' faces and run with them step for step, Watkins, Hill, Hardman, even Robinson are going to run down a defense faster if they're in a no huddle. So I think it is definitely a tool that is going to be used at some point. I just don't know how much. Great question. Let's see. Locked On Chiefs gear. I am working on that. I don't own the rights because we're part of a network, but yeah, I will. I'll try to get another store set up for some Locked On Chiefs gear. Let's see. Okay, Terrence Mahoney, keep Tyreek or Jones. Pick one. Tyreek. There are a lot of good defensive linemen. There's nobody like Tyreek Hill in this league. Especially if his off-the-field stuff is over with and was all kind of a sham to begin with, definitely Tyreek. Let's see. How are our linebackers looking? Solid so far from everything I heard. Made a couple of plays. Darren Liga poked out turnover from Kelsey today, that kind of thing. Have you watched Dieter's videos on YouTube? Yeah, and you know what's cool is a guy that used to work for the Chiefs is the guy doing all that filming. His name's Billy. Met him last year at camp. Great dude. It seems like he's doing a good job. Interesting videos. Very, life, day in the life kind of thing. Charlie, what do you think of TK getting some first team reps at the end? Do you think it's more likely that K-Pass or Speaks emerges? I think in a specific role, I think they might like K-Pass more because especially rushing wide 9 is what he did in college. And if that's what they're letting him do and emphasizing that, that's kind of a natural thing for him. Speaks is in there amongst better players and is in there in a difficult position, going from end to outside linebacker last year, back on the inside. I think he may have a tougher, he may have a tougher road. Charlie with the good questions tonight. And answered that one. Carliners, yes. The team controls all player appearances and media. That's why we don't get many players on the show. Most of the time that we do, it's young guys that haven't signed their futures contract yet. So you can actually approach them, or their agents can approach you. We have had several players on the show on the podcast over the years, just not very consistently. Everything else is controlled through Chiefs PR. Okay. Looks like there's a lot of questions that I've answered already. So I think we're good, you guys. Appreciate all your questions tonight. It's been great. Good to see all of your names up here. I hope you had a good time, and we'll be back next Monday, just like normal. Check out the podcast channel for that new craft beer podcast I'm doing. That'll go out later this week. I'll have new gear up for those of you that want some stuff. And, Josh Jacobs, how do you get the perfect curve for my hat? Years of repetitively doing this. Honestly, it's just kind of a nervous tick for me, but actually take a softball, wet the bill, wrap it around it, and tie it down with a rubber band. That'll do the trick. Let's see. Anything else that I haven't covered in these questions? Tony Perkins, how many safeties do they keep? I think probably 4. There's always a possibility of 5. So yeah, we'll make that one the last one. Thank you guys for all of your questions and your donations tonight. Appreciate all the stuff that you've been saying. Keep spreading the word. Tell them about the channels, everything, and hit those comments when the next one comes out. Enjoy it when you go to camp, and I'll be up there in a few weeks. Hope to see you guys there, and I'll check you next week. Thanks.